Welcome to my session, Creative Machine Learning. My name is Andreas Refsgaard, and I'm an interaction designer and creative coder from Copenhagen, Denmark. And today I have made a small website with some small fun. You behind the screen to actually participate in. The URL is up here. So it's andreasref.github.io/SAT. So if you're up for it, you can try to join the website, open it maybe in Google Chrome, and then you can do the activities that I do. You can also choose to just sit back and enjoy me mess things up. Okay, so what are we gonna do? And what is ML5? So ML5.js is a library for doing simple machine learning tasks directly in the browser. And today we are going to do 3 small things, and I'll show you some kind of artistic things to build on top of these techniques. So the first thing we're going to do is to train a classification algorithm, something that you can train to recognize one class from another class. And then once we've done that, I'll show a bit more advanced example where I built a trainable camera feature on top of that. So we actually have a camera that we can teach when it should take a picture and when it shouldn't take a picture. After that, we're going to have a look at a network that has already been trained to classify 1,000 different categories. It's called MobileNet. It's not super accurate, but it's kind of fun. And there's a lot of fun in also some of the misclassifications that it can do. And then I'm going to show you a project I built on top of that called Poems About Things, where I try to generate weird poetry based on these classifications. So we can also have a look at that. And then finally, we will have a look at regression. So training a regression algorithm and then using the output, which the output are not like distinct classes A or B or banana or apple, but instead is a continuous value, a decimal number. You could think of it as a slider. And then we want to use that number to control something. And I have a couple of weird examples for outputs, like controlling the playback rate of a song or controlling how Mr. Bean moves. I encourage you, as I said, to try this along with me. The URL is up here, andreasref.github.io. And because I can't really maybe debug for you just in advance, a few tips. Try to run these examples in Google Chrome. They will work in most other browsers as well. Try to allow the camera and the microphone, make sure you have permission to use them in the browser you're using. And then also allow it on a system preference level. And then I will also say that maybe if you're on a kind of old computer, some of it won't work. So you need to have a recently decent graphics card. But if you have a computer no less than 5 years old, it should work. This won't really work on most tablets or phones. So now you're warned. And if you want to read more about ML5.js, then there's a reference, but I'll get to that as well in a bit. Okay, so the URL is here, and I think let's just jump into it. So I'm going to open this first example called webcam classifier. And I'm building these examples by combining ML5 and P5.js, and I'm doing it online in this editor, the P5.js online editor. Let's just jump into it. Ignore the code and just press play and see what this crazy guy is doing. So this should hopefully prompt your webcam, you need to press allow. And then what you can do is that you can teach a model to distinguish between two different classes, class A and class B. And you do that simply by showing it something through the webcam and then clicking the A button, then showing it something else through the webcam and clicking the B button. So I want to show it A for me. I'm Andreas. And I'm going to give it some examples of me just sitting in front of the webcam. I'll try to give it a bit of variation so it knows that it's me even if I'm leaning back or leaning forward. And about 50 should be fine. Then I'm going to do the same, but for banana. So it will still kind of see me, but the banana will be in the foreground and closer to the camera. And with an equal amount of samples recorded, I'm going to hit the train button. And once it's done training, you can click Start Guessing. So now it's going to say A, and when I show it the banana, it's going to say B. A and B. So I taught it to distinguish between those two things. If you want to maybe make it output a more descriptive text, you can click the Stop button. Then you can go a bit down into the code and then simply change from A and B on line 32 and 35. And let's try to change it to Andreas and banana. Then we can run the sketch again. Then I need to record some examples again, but it's good practice. I'll do a lower number this time around. And click train. Click Start Guessing. So now I'll say A, and I'll say B. So what I would like you to do back home is actually to try this out. I also wrote it down here as a small exercise. Train a classifier to distinguish between two different classes and make the sketch output a descriptive text for each class. So again, what you need to do, you need to press play. You need to maybe do some examples of A and examples of B. I'm doing it with myself and a banana, but you could do it with whatever you got handy. Maybe it could be like you kind of close to the camera, you a bit further from the camera, you versus your hand, maybe your kid, maybe your dog, I don't know, maybe a chocolate bar, who knows? And then by default, it'll just say A and B, but you can also make it output a descriptive text by typing whatever name you have for the first class and whatever name you have for the second class. And then a cool thing about this is also, which I can mention maybe while you train this, is that you can actually save the model you made and then upload it later on. And that's kind of handy because then like you can actually embed this kind of functionality into a web page. Believe it or not, we're actually on the web, and this is just JavaScript. If you're interested maybe in like digging further into this, you can also have a look at what this project contains. So it contains a JavaScript file, but then also an HTML file that does very few things. But one of them is that it loads the ML5 library. So maybe while you do this small exercise, I'll show you a more advanced thing to do, but built on top of the same functionality, this binary classification where we classify class A and class B. We teach it the difference between A and B just on the fly. And that example is what I call Trainable Camera. I'm just gonna leave this sketch and I'll open the next sketch, Trainable Camera. And for anybody joining in, what we're doing right now is that I encourage you back home, if you feel like it, to go to this website and do these small exercises with me live. And we are now under one, train a classification algorithm. And I've gotten to the advanced example, Trainable Camera. Okay, so this, if you follow along from the beginning, this should look kind of familiar. We still have buttons for one class, button for another class, for training, and start getting. But now we also, the buttons are called something different. So this first button is not class A, it's actually the class that's where we teach it when not to take a picture. And I don't want this model to take a picture when it just sees me. That would be a bit boring. So I'm going to say, don't take a picture when it just sees me. And give it a bit of variation. But when it sees something slightly more interesting, maybe if this little dinosaur photobombs the picture, or photobombs the frame, then it should actually take a picture. So maybe you can bring in your cat or your kid, or I don't know. And again, roughly the same number of examples. Then I'm going to hit train. And I'm going to hit start guessing. And then it will go A, which is teach me when not to take a picture. So now it shouldn't take a picture. But let's see what happens if this dinosaur comes in the picture, tries to steal my thunder. Then it goes B, and then it actually takes a picture. And it saves the picture to my computer. So this is a somewhat functional conditional online photo booth that you can teach when to take pictures and when not to take pictures. Let me just try again. It took a picture. Okay, I'm gonna hit stop. And it's okay if you didn't do the trainable camera, but I hope at least some of you out there try to train your own classifier. What we're gonna do next is to have a look at this thing called ML5 MobileNet pre-trained classification. And I'm simply going to run this first example. And just click play. And let's see what happens. So this is a model that has already been trained. And it's been trained on images of 1,000 categories from something called ImageNet. And in that particular instance of ImageNet, there's no categories for people. So it thinks that I'm all these weird things. It thinks I'm a syringe. Sometimes it can think I'm a microphone. I'm like a mask. I don't know. So it's not really good at detecting people. However, it's pretty decent at detecting objects, everyday objects. So let me just try to not show myself, but maybe show more of this black background. And then what happens if I show it this? A banana. Oops. At least sometimes it thinks it's a banana. You can also put it on the table. Oops. Slug. Banana. Then I'm going to try to show it this. A little apple. And it kind of thinks it's a bauble or a Granny Smith. And let me try something else. Blow dryer, not really. Hairspray, yeah, not really. So it's not super accurate. Let's have a look at this thing. A cassette. Yeah, there you go. I want to show you a small little project I built with this. And it's called Poems About Things. And let's see if it works. This is one of the things I was kind of fearing leading up to this live performance, because sometimes this project actually breaks. But it uses the same model. And then you can have it take pictures of things and it'll try to generate a poem about them. So let's see. Okay, banana, jellyfish, banana. And now it actually wrote somewhat of a poem about a banana. Is my banana too ripe? Is my banana bad? Is my banana tree dead? Is my banana tree cooked? Let's try one more thing, see if it wants to do something about, I don't know, this apple. Why are my Granny Smith apples turning red? It's a good question, not a question I can answer. Mine is still green. And maybe the last thing, let's see what it thinks of this toilet tissue. Where are paper towels made? Oh, paper towel. I thought it was a paper towel. Let's try to do one more. I wanted to kind of generate something about toilet tissue. See if I can do that. Oh no, blood on my toilet tissue. My cat eats toilet tissue. Oh, okay. So maybe some of you are wondering, like, what is going on? What is he doing? So I'm building, what I did is that I built a project on top of this mobile net classification model. So it is able to detect objects, and then I send that object plus a word or two, kind of like typical beginnings of search queries. It could be something like is, my, or does this, or where, can, or something like that. And then I send that to Google Suggest, Google Autocomplete API, which is the same thing as you do maybe from time to time when you try to search for something. So it tries to guess what you're searching for by completing your sentence, your search query, and it has different suggestions. And then I'm simply listing those because I find it to be kind of interesting and somewhat poetic at times. I'm going to show a few fun projects or poems that I did over the last couple of years with this project. This is a picture of a somewhat hairy chest, and because MobileNet doesn't have, or this instance at least, doesn't have a category for person, then it detects this as something it thinks is close, which is fur coat. And you could kind of argue that this is actually a fur coat, right? A human body, torso with hair, kind of like a fur coat. And then it asks, in my opinion, quite interesting questions. Is my fur coat real? Is it worth anything? Is it mink? I hope not. Is my coat fur? And so on. And then for some additional poems, there's some poems about bananas. Can they kill you? Can they be frozen? Can they cause diabetes? I don't know. But actually the things about banana trees being able to move and walk, I found out later on that they can do that. So in a way, this project is also a lens to see things through and make everyday objects a bit more weird or start asking questions about them. And then, some more poems that I like about refrigerators. Why can't you lay them down? Why can't the refrigerator cool a room, etc.? Or maybe this last one about organ donation. Because what is being detected is an organ, the musical instrument, but organ has multiple meanings. It can also be what's inside our bodies. And organ also happens to be the beginning of the word organization. So it makes these weird juxtapositions of questions about organ donation, organ failure, and more businessy questions about organizational structure and leadership and so on. Okay, so the exercise that I encourage you to do now is to try to place some different objects in front of the camera and try to observe as they get detected. What happens if you change the background or the angle of the webcam? And then you can also try my poem example if you feel like it and generate some weird poems. But I must warn you, like too many requests at the same time can make the API a bit cranky. So if it doesn't work, you can try again tomorrow. I'm gonna drink a bit of water and maybe let you open the example and see what it thinks of you or thinks of objects close to you. And let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, so I think I have about 10 minutes left, and I will move on to the next little demo. And that is about training a regression algorithm. Because previously we've only looked at classification, and classification is really good for figuring out whether something belongs into a certain box. Is it a banana or is it an apple? Does it belong in class A or class B? But sometimes you don't want those distinct boxes. You're more interested in a continuous output. You're interested in kind of like a decimal number that can go between one range and another range, and it can assume all the positions in between. So it's kind of like a space you're exploring instead. Also think of it maybe in musical terms as a dial. So instead of like a button on a keyboard that selects which kind of sound you're using, sound 1, sound 2, sound 3, that could kind of be classification. Then what if you have a dial and you kind of want to control how much effect you add? For something like that, regression maybe makes more sense. And I will try to, I think, open this first example where I control the size of a rectangle with regression. So now you see that the interface has changed slightly. So instead of having buttons, now we have this slider, and the slider controls the rectangle size. So when I put it all the way to the right, the rectangle is pretty big. And when I put it to the left, it almost disappears. So what I think I want to do is try to see if I can train a relationship between how close I am to the camera and how big this rectangle is. So let's just see. If I move very close to the camera, the rectangle should be quite big. So I'm going to give it some examples of that. And if I move a bit away, it should be smaller. And this is actually not like, this has nothing to do with face tracking. It's looking at all the pixels, also the background of my apartment. And then if I move like far, far away, or maybe if I move a bit out of the picture, it should be smaller. Okay. So this is not super accurate. We're kind of just doing it on the fly. I'm going to hit train. And then I'm going to say start predicting. And I hope as I move close, it at least takes on relatively big values. And when I move away, it becomes smaller and smaller. So, and yeah, for this to be more like follow the movement more smoothly, I should have trained it a bit better. But I hope you get the idea. But maybe some of you get the idea and think, oh, it's really boring. Why did he show us that? Well, now I'm actually going to take the output and have it control something a bit more interesting and a bit more playful. So I'll do the same thing with this next example, advanced example 1, playback rate camera. And we are in headline number 3, ML5, train a regression algorithm. And what I'm going to do now is have a song play in the background. And then the slider will control how fast the song plays. So when the slider is all the way to the right, it will play fast. If it's in the middle, it'll play at half speed. And if it's all the way to the left, it will almost stop entirely. Let's see how it works. If I move it to the left, it's very slow. If I move it to the right, it becomes fast. And then it becomes slower and slower and slower. Okay, so what I want to do is kind of the same as before, but instead of moving my face, I think I will kind of tell it to stop by raising my hand. And the more I raise my hand, the more the song should stop, the more it should play at speed 0, meaning that it's actually not really playing. But when it just sees me, it should actually play at full speed. So I'm gonna train this. And sorry if the sound is really loud. I hope it's not too loud. But let me just train this and watch how I move the samples, move the slider, and also position my hand. That's kind of the relationship we're trying to train. And I have a thing in the chat. Let's just see, 5 minutes left. That's fine. Okay, so I'm gonna train it now. Let's have a look. And then slowly raising my hand. Raising it a bit more. And raising it even more. And maybe covering the whole thing with my hand. Let's see. Okay. Maybe it was a bit rough. Let's see. We're gonna go train. We are going to click Start Predicting. And let's see what happens if I raise my hand. So I can actually now control the playback speed with my hand. I think I need to train it a bit better in this position. So I'm going to add some more samples. It's actually performing pretty well. It's doing what I wanted to do, slow down fully when I show it my full hand. And then start playing. And stop it. Okay, so what I would like you to do is to also try to train this regressor and see if you can control maybe even either the sound playback or Mr. Bean through your webcam. The Mr. Bean example is very similar, but the output in this case is graphics. So you can see that it's actually gonna control Mr. Bean, and maybe you can find a clever way of controlling Mr. Bean by moving your fingers. Like that could be kind of a fun little idea, or maybe you come up with something else. Let me just see the chat. We have 2 minutes left. So I am going to wrap up, maybe while you do this small exercise. And if anybody's just joining in and are thinking, what is going on? What is he doing? You can actually go to the website. I'll leave it up after I end this session in just a minute. And then you can visit it and try out these fun examples with using machine learning in quick and easy and hopefully kind of interesting ways. I also provided some links if you want to check out the library I'm using, ML5. And I am also actually right now doing a fellowship with ML5. So I'm trying to make even more fun, playful examples and templates for you to build interesting stuff on top of this. And I would also maybe say that you're always welcome to reach out to me. You can find my website down here and reach out on any platform if you have fun ideas or any questions, or maybe are interested in having a workshop or something like that. So yeah, I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too fast or too weird or too boring or too simple. I don't know. I liked it, but it's strange new world of remote talks. So yeah, my name is Andreas Refsgaard. Thanks for tuning in and stick around. More good stuff coming up.